Morning. Should be able to wrap up corn post-emergent spraying today. It looks like up-hoffs are already out bright and early this morning side dressing corn. The marriage of red and green. I think that may be against the law somewhere. Alrighty, we're back at the home base working on our morning chores. We're currently topping off the rinse tank on the sprayer because I've been spraying 100 gallons through the boom after every day. I'm also violently agitating the tanker because we've got a huge load on there I picked up yesterday, and that atrazine settles out rather quickly. Along those same lines, yesterday I pulled my inline filters out. They get plugged up with the atrazine as well. It's like a latex paint, and I just preemptively pulled them out. They really weren't dirty at all, but I figured I've only got one hard day of spraying left. I might as well make sure everything's in tip-top shape beforehand. I did quite a bit of spraying off camera yesterday. It was Sunday. I was running by myself doing my own tendering, which essentially means driving the sprayer back home every time I needed to fill. I had a lot of fields around here that needed sprayed, so it really was not an issue. I got quite a bit knocked off the list, which is why we only have one day left of running. Turn the boom back on and we're ready to rock and roll, other than priming this after we fill it. Should be full pretty shortly. Holds 100 gallons, I believe. It's amazing how quick you can burn through that 100 gallons when you're purging the boom out with the clean water. That's probably good enough. I'm gonna run and top off my gas container because I've been burning a ton of fuel in that pump. I'm running it almost constantly to keep everything mixed up. And I'm gonna go check the field real quick. So it's the last thing on my list, then we're gonna hit the ground running with spraying. Rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. That's what they say, right? Maisie, are you guarding the fuel? Hey! Whoa, 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 whoa! Too much energy. We're gonna be spraying today. What are you gonna do? Eat poop? Run around? Bark at things? Sounds like a pretty good day for a dog. Fuel can's topped off. I had the dog in charge of making sure it didn't overfill, and it looks like she did not do her job. Can't trust anyone to do quality work anymore these days. Don't work too hard. You take care of the older dog who's inside relaxing. Before we get too far into the action, I wanted to talk about something near and dear to my heart and the sponsor of today's video, AG1. AG1 is more than just a greens powder. As a matter of fact, it is a combination of 9 different daily health supplements, all baked into one simple, enjoyable first thing in the morning routine. For myself, I've been using AG1 for 6 or 7 months now, and I've got nothing but good things to say about it. It's quick, it's easy, and it tastes great. The diversity of ingredients in AG1 is one of my favorite parts about it, as opposed to having to take a multivitamin, a probiotic, a prebiotic, yada, yada, yada. It is all combined into one simple, easy routine. You don't have to take a million different supplements to cover all of your bases on your health, your body, your wellness, everything you could think of. It's right here in AG1. A lot of you watching are just like me. You're busy, you're on the go, you've got a full schedule. You don't have time to mess around with all these silly little habits you're trying to do. Make it easy, go with AG1, cover all of your needs. As someone who has to do a lot of physically rigorous work, I myself am looking for recovery, maybe a little bit more energy, clarity. Those are a few things that could be promoted by AG1 depending on what your body needs, though there are a lot of other things that it can help supplement. I highly suggest you go look at drinkag1.com/aTrippyFarmer to see exactly what you might stand to benefit. That being said, anyone who goes to that link and gets started on an order will also get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2, as well as 5 free travel packs. I've talked a lot about AG1. I do not say this without any basis. I think it's a phenomenal product, and I highly, highly recommend you go check it out today. And did I mention it tastes great? Put this whole thing down while I was talking to you. Not a problem at all. Get started today. drinkag1.com/aTrippyFarmer. Thanks again to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the action. Field looks dry, and we've got a little bit of giant ragweed breaking through. That spot in particular was an old hog feedlot, I believe, or pasture, and we've fought weeds there for decades. It seems to be about the only place on our farm where the giant ragweed reigns supreme. Yep, let's go get the sprayer. Here's our stop. On top of a heavy population of giant ragweed, this field has also struggled for a long time, probably the last decade, with a nice thick carpet of water hemp. So I'm going to bump the rate up a little bit here on this first pass. This has been a troublesome area for years for us. Once you have one outbreak of a weed, especially something that can reproduce like water hemp, you're going to be fighting it for a lifetime. Okay, that's 7 acres. Should give us plenty of room to finish this with a full tank. People in the comments, retailers, other farmers about spraying atrazine and its likeliness to solidify out or fall out of solution in the tank. Yesterday when I was spraying on my own, I actually pumped the tank dry to see how much I had and kind of do some math to make sure I don't have a ton extra when we're done spraying today. I don't want to have any extra chemical. Hey, I got that thing pumped all the way down and realized that we are going to have to rethink our agitation strategy, because when I got down to the bottom, I mean, there was gobs and gobs of that latex-like atrazine in the bottom. I'm mixing in the front and the back, dumping in. It's just not enough. I need something that can actually reach down underneath and stir up down by the main valves, because it's just sitting down there. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. I'm not worried about the Acheron GT. I'm sure it's staying in solution, but the atrazine is a whole different scenario. We got a lot of it that's not even making it into the tank, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, it is a cheap product. So not the end of the world, but we will have to address that going forward. It's going to work out nicely that I should end up here when I'm done with the field, so just going to stay in this spot. This morning I mixed the heck out of the back compartment. I'm just going to let this run and keep mixing the front compartment. It goes without saying that I'd rather have to keep filling up the engine on that pump than to get to the end of the day and have a bunch of atrazine sitting in the bottom of my tanker that'll need cleaned out when we're done. Okay, back to spraying. I'm gonna finish wrapping the edges of this field and hit the long rows. Got a neighbor with soybeans to the east. This product would absolutely smoke those soybeans, so I moved over about 2 rows to the left of where I normally line up. Whatever I do, I don't want to anger the neighbors, so I'm not gonna get on them. Erring on the side of caution. If we have a couple weeds in that outside row or two, it's not the end of the world. Second fill up of the day should allow me to finish what's left on this field, as well as 2 smaller fields as I work my way east. One thing you'll notice is that because I targeted a slightly lower percentage than what we actually mixed for, so I was targeting 14.8 gallons per acre, and with spraying a few spots, multiple percentages too high, 16 to 17 gallon an acre, I still came out at 14.95 gallons an acre on average. Arguably, that's the perfect outcome, because that means I've got exactly what I accounted for. We'll see in about a week whether or not those ragweeds and waterhead die. I'm willing to bet they do. It's been a good hour and a half since I last checked in, sprayed other 2 fields, knocking on 200 acres so far this morning. I've got a nozzle body that looks like it's going bad, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace that real quick, assuming I can remember which one it was. I marked it. Now where'd it go? Slippery little fella. There it is, right in front of your eyes. There was a bird's nest here, so maybe they sabotaged it. Up on your body first thing in the morning. Exactly what I need. Take that size 4 PJet XR tip, throw it right on. Should be good to go, assuming I fixed the right one. It fixed it. Now on to the next fun part of this field, crossing all of the tile lines we had installed. That's a real joy on the ends. I've got 300 acres in 3 fields, all within a stone's throw of each other here. These are where you get the acres covered. The piddly stuff where you're spraying 10, 20 acres at a the time, although nice to have, still will never be as efficient as the big fields. It looks like I've got 2 more plug nozzles outside there on the right end. Probably ought to get those swapped out before too long. To me that all the nozzle bodies were fine, or I saw a different problem. I must have crossing one of those tile lines, hit that boom in a way that it actually pushed the boom itself, or not the boom, but the tubing on the inside that holds all the nozzle bodies forward, and some of them were blowing product up against the frame. And I almost wonder if that's what I was seeing. I'll turn it on, see what happens. Yeah, I was right. A little twist back with the pipe wrench and it's good to go. You all know that I'm a huge believer in tile drainage systems. It's hard denying, though, that the newly installed tile does not leave a few years worth of headaches from all the trenches and the settling and ridges out there in the field. It's really not super fun to farm around it until it's mellowed out in the next couple of years. Maybe there's something we need to do differently on our end to make it more enjoyable and logistically pleasing. As it currently stands, though, it's pretty much a headache until it's settled down. Already got 80 acres in the bag on this field. Even with working on my boom, it's only taken about 30 minutes. It's impressive how much you can get done with the sprayer. Now I just gotta wait and see how long it takes Jeff to back up another 100 yards. Well, it looks like I can safely take a quick bathroom break because he's progressing like a turtle. It is pretty nice being able to fill on both the front side and the back side of the machine. Gives you a lot of flexibility. Most of the time I prefer the back side because I don't have to undo all the shielding to get to the front fill. The back fill is just right off the ladder, so it's pretty convenient. Sometimes, though, you're kind of logistically constrained with the field you're in, and filling up from the front's easier. We're loaded for another 75 acres. Shouldn't take us that long. Jeff's pretty close to empty, although not completely tap dry. I'm sending him back to Helena for one more huge load of chemical, and then the one after that will be our clean out load, so we're pretty close to done. Crawl our way in reverse out of this little ditch bottom we were in. It's dry right now. If we were to get one of those big 4-inch rains that comes within a couple of hours like we've gotten periodically for the last decade, that water would probably be up to the Hagee cap. You know, the best part about spraying post-emergence corn is that you get to scout your fields. The worst part about spraying post-emergence corn is that you get to scout your fields. I didn't want to pick it up, but I thought that looked like an expensive tire fix if we didn't get it. It's like it snapped clean off. I can tell you one thing though, we did not get our money's worth out of that sweep. You know what? I actually bet in here somewhere there's oil well pipe. I bet you this grabs some pipe. I know Jeff had to fish a bunch out of the field cultivator from this field in particular. Cross another one off the list. 123 acres, covered with Acuron GT and a pound of atrazine. Yeah, we've got a really long drive to the next field. Oh look, we're here. As I anticipated would happen, although not quite as swiftly, my pressure sensor on my boom started to run really high even at low speeds, meaning that my strainers are probably full of atrazine, which would make sense, especially because I'm pulling so much chunky atrazine out of the tanker. I almost need an inline filter on the actual fill line to screen everything before it even reaches here. I have been constantly agitating my sprayer tank, so I wouldn't think that it's settling out in there, although anything's probably possible with atrazine. Because I sent Jeff on probably a 45-minute excursion to go get a load of chemical, I was gonna catch him anyways. I'm probably gonna have to fill here in the next 10 minutes. Not even that, actually. When I ringed this field the first time, I'd be pretty close to empty. I only have 250, 300 gallons in the tank, so I might as well go ahead and look at this real quick while I have time. I'm not gonna be able to thoroughly clean it, but I should be able to at least get the blockage out of the way, assuming that's the problem. If I had a better agitation system like I discussed earlier on in the video, it probably wouldn't be as much of an issue, all of that atrazine settling out, and then I think chunks of it are coming through the pump all at once and not really getting mixed up. You can actually tell it's blocked because when you open these little valves, it should flow out faster than that. Atrazine's like the butter of herbicides. Goes well with everything until it clogs your arteries. I don't know if you can see in there. There's definitely some residue in there, and some of it could have actually washed out when I opened it up. I don't know if that was enough to cause an issue. I'm just gonna go use my hand rinse tank and clean them out. I'm almost an expert at this now. Every day I spray, I learn something new to make everything go smoother. Close the valve on the bottom of that one. Open our banjos back up. You can hear it flowing back down. Tighten this up just a hair. I can tell by how many bite marks there are on this filter that a pipe wrench has been put on it a handful of times. Actually, probably more than a handful. So definitely a common thing when you're spraying corn herbicides that have atrazine in them. Oh yes, that definitely had a positive impact, because at this speed, just a second ago, I was pushing 80 to 90 pounds on the pressure. Now we're running 50. Just getting plugged up. Okay, tank's empty enough that it's not worth trying to spray anymore. I'm going to sit here because Jeff ought to be here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Probably go ahead and shut the Hagee off and take it easy. Right now would be a great time for one of two things. One, a grease gun to grease everything while I wait, because it's perfect doing it. Everything's nice and warm and limbered, so it should take grease easily. Or the second option, which I like more, would be a nice fold-out camping chair, so I could just sit down under the shade that the Hagee gives while I wait on my tanker. Oh, you guys know me better than that. I'm not gonna pass up a good opportunity to talk. I discussed our post-emergence corn herbicide plan in the previous video. I'm gonna rehash it a little bit. The question is, what are we out here trying to kill? Obviously, there's a variety of grasses and broadleafs that are present in our field, but our worst enemy is the most plentiful and also the hardest to terminate. That enemy is water hemp. If you do not know what water hemp is, good for you. Hopefully you never have to learn. These little gremlins right here have naturally grown resistant to a variety of powerful chemistries, including glyphosate. Throughout the growing season, they're constantly putting on new growing points. They reproduce in quantities that are honestly ridiculous. If one of these pesky little herbicide-resistant water hemp goes to seed after fully growing through the season, it can put on north of 250,000 seeds. Yes, you heard that right, 250,000 seeds. One of them. That's why we talk about one breakout becoming an issue for a lifetime, because those seeds can live in the soil for a decade, even 2 decades. I'm not sure what the lifespan on water hemp is. Some plant species can remain viable in the soil for a very long time without germination. Others don't last as long. Either way, if you have a large amount of water hemp break through and put seed on in your field, you're gonna be fighting them for a long time to come. We've got that in a lot of fields, and it's actually nothing to do with our corn herbicide programs. Keeping cornfields clean is actually not as challenging as soybeans, because corn can metabolize a large variety of potent herbicides. Soybeans, on the other hand, not quite as efficient, actually not even close. A lot of these things we spray on our cornfields would absolutely smoke soybeans. That's why we have to be so careful when we spray around neighboring fields. The only thing that wouldn't hurt them is the glyphosate in the product we're spraying. Glyphosate, or as it's commonly referred to as Roundup, does not really carry the firepower for broadleafs that it did 15 or 20 years ago. At one point in time, it was the best thing since sliced bread. To put it nicely, Roundup's kind of the old dog in the pack anymore. Although it is a very viable part of a herbicide program in glyphosate-tolerant crops, its main job at this point is just cleaning up grasses. Still very proficient at doing that. However, broadleaf control pretty limited. I guess that's a half-truth. It's still very effective against a large amount of broadleafs. It's a non-selective herbicide. It kills everything across the board, except for the weeds that have grown resistant to it. As a matter of fact, Roundup resistance is the reason we have such a large amount of water hemp in our fields, although it probably complements itself. I mean, it just makes sense. If it becomes resistant to the main herbicide in a program, it is going to proliferate quickly. Like I said, the issue doesn't really stem from cornfields. It's the soybean fields where really your traded or genetically modified resistant herbicide traits in your soybeans are what are out there to help clean up broadleafs. Once water hemp became resistant to Roundup, which was initially cleaning it up, and then the variety of other weaker herbicides that you can naturally apply to soybeans, controlling it for a good span of time was very difficult. Within the last 5 to 6 years, XtendFlex, Enlist, Liberty, a few other chemistries have come to market or tolerances in soybeans that have allowed us to clean up water hemp. The issue is that we're still fighting off the large population of water hemp that broke out in our fields 10 years ago when we didn't have these newer herbicide tolerance trait in our soybeans, so we were working with limited, ineffective herbicides. Kind of all over the place with this one. I could talk about this for hours. It just goes to show you, life always finds a way. When you create a perfectly clean field with no competition, something's going to adapt and something's going to overcome. In our case, it's water hemp. Applying on post-emergence corn, the main heavy hitter in the blend is the Callisto or the mesotrione. It's honestly kind of scary if you think about how much people rely on the Callisto to clean up their corn. It is both a burn down and a residual product. This Acheron GT is a pretty elite post-emergence plus residual product because it does have that patented bicyclopyrone. We personally also add the extra pound of atrazine because it goes really well to help enhance the effectiveness of Callisto. For some reason, they're synergistic. Then we've got the Dual 2 Magnum in the blend, as well as some Roundup to clean up grasses. It's pretty effective, and it honestly should take care of most of this water hemp, but you hate to see it out here. We made a lot of changes this year on our herbicide program on the corn. Soybeans are completely the same. Probably need to start putting down a residual up front to hold back as many small water hemp as we can to help get us to this pass without having so many big water hemp. Because the bigger those water hemp are, those weeds in general are, the harder they are to kill. Water hemp's just a completely another beast compared to all the other weeds in the field. Alrighty, we are loaded up. I'm actually going to go to the back side of this field and spray it, then come back here. That way I don't have to spray here, go there, load, then load again. Logistically, it makes more sense. You just gotta trust me. Those are some Pioneer 3-1 beans. They look pretty good. Let's just hope that I don't hurt them with this corn herbicide. I'm happy to report that we're pushing 600 acres sprayed so far today. Been rather productive. Heading over to Lerna for our last set of fields, and we'll be done with corn. This group of fields over here are the only ones where we have a residual herbicide down ahead of corn planting. There is a reason for that. We had to get the nitrogen down on this farm ahead of planting, or half the nitrogen, and it didn't make sense to come out here with the sprayer to blow on 32% without putting on some kind of residual product. 2 birds with 1 stone type of deal. It does appear to me, though, that the 2 ounces of Residual SC we used an acre are doing a mighty fine job holding the weeds back. Might be something we have to look into on the rest of our farm. I started on the big 98 acre field, just about finished up. Go figure, my boom pressure is starting to pick back up, so I'm gonna just go pull those inline filters again real quick, make sure there's no debris in them. That way I can finish out corn post-emerge strong, not putting a mist on that's going to drift across the neighbor's soybeans. Other than not hitting your target rate if the restriction is too severe, the real concern, especially if there's a light breeze, is that you're putting out a lot of driftable fines at the higher pressures, and that might end up on a sensitive crop. As a matter of fact, I'm more concerned about this lady across the street's flowers than I am about the neighbor's soybeans, because the wind is out of the south. We are headed south right now. To no surprise, my inline strainer was again plugged. I finished that field, moved on to the next small field, finished up, and then I filled my sprayer up with the remnants of the solution in the tanker so I could calculate my math on what load I needed to finish spraying corn. Because it was getting later in the evening, I was gonna spray a few rounds and just ride in with Jeff and quit. I was hoping to get it all done tonight. The forecast is so nice though, there's no reason to burn the midnight oil. Tomorrow morning we'll get after it. That's not to mention that I think I ran a bunch of atrazine in with that last load because my pressure just went through the roof. So I'm quitting for the night. Check in with you guys tomorrow. Back at it this morning. Looks like the neighbors across the road are already spraying their post-emerge bean pass. I say they, knowing that's not them, that's the co-op they work with. Moving pretty quick. I ran the old Hagee pretty low on fuel yesterday, so I filled up the old Thunder Cheap fuel trailer here in the back of my truck, these 3 5-gallon buckets. That ought to be enough to cover the last 70 acres. I've also got some water to clean out my strainers that are plugged again from all the atrazine that probably ran out when I finished cleaning out that tanker into the sprayer. Looks like the Hagee is exactly where I left it, out in the middle of the field. So I'm gonna have to walk for a little bit to get to it. That's all right. I need the exercise, and the corn looks pretty good, so I enjoy walking through it. I'm actually extremely impressed how clean these fields are just from that 2 ounces of residual we put with that 32% we sprayed up front. There's a few cuckleburs popping through in some of the lower areas, probably high pressure. I noticed that last year with the soybeans. Any of the low-lying areas that had had previous flooding damage or crop damage from standing water had a pretty healthy population of cocklebur. There's a few of these yellow tops out here. Those were already emerged. They seem to be pretty resilient, that the field cultivator won't kill them. We've seen it time and time again on multiple farms. It's not like the Zidua didn't hold them back. The problem is that the field cultivator didn't get us a completely clean field. It happens. Those are a very minor concern, if a no concern at all. The first thing we definitely have to do is agitate a little bit. You can see that pressure starting to creep up. 40 is probably plenty. Watch this tank start to roll when I hit this button down. You can see it in the sight tube. I've got 70 acres left to spray, and I've got less than 1/8 of a tank. And I also have to drive home, so I'd be cutting it pretty close on what I have. 15 gallons will go a long way in a Hagee tank though. This thing only holds like 120 gallons. It'd be nice just to start spraying. Unfortunately, I've got to go clean my strainers out before I do anything. I almost wonder when I emptied that tanker out for the last time all the way down to the bottom if I didn't pull out a big old glob of that atrazine that fed right into my strainer. Which is why the strainers are here. They're doing their job, because if it plugs the strainer, it'd probably plug my size 4 tips. Getting pretty good at this. Oh yeah, look at that. You know what? I may just rinse this whole thing out in my water bucket. That's gnarly. Look how much atrazine is in the bottom of that. It's all caked up on the bottom there. Baptized by water with atrazine. Look at how murky this water is. Glad I got these gloves on. Gonna put these in too. I think it sits up on the bottom of it. Oh yeah, that ought to really help. I'm gonna let those 4 pieces sit in that bucket and think about their bad behavior a little bit while I break out the Thunder Cheap trailer here and put some fuel in the Hagee. That's the one good part about being fat, is you get a lot of extra leverage. Bad start. Son of a... So I said, Thunder Cheap. You get what you pay for. If you were smart, you would have just put enough fuel in before you left the farm, but never knew you for your brains. I'd say we got about 2.5 of the 5 gallons in here. It was a learning process. In traditional Andy fashion, that took longer than I counted it would. Inline strainers are back in the plumbing. They cleaned out fairly well. Should be good enough to run us till the end of spraying here. The one downside to doing hot loads through a tanker is that the last field or fields is a little more complicated than if you were mixing straight into the sprayer. If your product could remain unmixed until it goes into the sprayer, you could just accurately meter out what you needed for the last amount of acres and be done. You don't have to load any extra. The issue with hot loads is that I have to have the product pre-mixed, so my last load has to be fairly accurate. Last night we tapped the tanker dry, and I want to show you my math for calculating how much I need to go pick up to finish spraying corn. I showed that I had 360 gallons in the sprayer from that last tanker load. Tanker was empty. That equals to 24 acres of product. I had already sprayed 21 acres of that field. That leaves me 45 acres total between what had been sprayed and what was in the tank. It was a 77 acre field. Disregard my math here. Basically, subtract 45 from 77, it's upside down. You've got 32 acres remaining. Got another 29 acre field down the road. That puts us at 61 acres of product needed, which equals 915 gallons. So I'm gonna pick up a load pretty close to that. I may do 950 gallons to have a couple extra, or I may try to squeeze by right on the money. We'll see how I'm feeling when I call in the load. Perfect timing. This is exactly what I was talking about. This guy actually can mix straight into the sprayer. Think of it kind of like baking a cake or any other kind of recipe. You can have all the individual ingredients at your house, and you can keep taking from that bulk stockpile whenever you want. And other than things that go bad over time, the flour, the sugar, all that stuff, you can keep for as long as you need. It's convenient, it's concise, it's not been intermingled with something else. In a roundabout way, we are getting the batter straight from the plant. We're not getting the individual ingredients. The herbicide does not go bad once it's mixed in water. It just becomes very inconvenient. You can't adjust mixtures if you want to try something different next year. So you kind of logistically strain yourself by getting the hot loads. At the same time, I'm probably loading my sprayer much quicker than someone with a tender trailer like that is. I'm in and out in 5 or 6 minutes if I hustle. These guys that are mixing their own, unless they have one of those fancy mixing systems, it probably takes them 10 or 15 minutes. As with everything in life, there is pros and cons to each side. The bulk tanker hot load setup is great. It's fast, it's efficient, in and out quick. The tender trailer mix your own into the sprayer is a lot slower, or a little bit slower, though you do save a marginally larger amount of money. Last load of Acheron GT for a post-emergence corn herbicide pass. Should all fit. I guess if it doesn't, I come back and get a couple more acres worth off the tanker and finish up. 1,150 gallons in the tank, pretty close to a full load, and almost a shade over exactly what we need, so this should be perfect. Concerned about that atrazine that was sitting in the bottom a few days ago, and after another 1,000 acres of spraying, it's all gone. I still think we stand to improve our agitation. That's a lot better than it looks, so we'll take that as a victory. Hopefully it all didn't get mixed out in one batch. Alrighty, time to fire up the sprayer and finish up. Got about 70 acres to do. That right there is the last pass I did yesterday evening. And you'll see on this map where my pressure really started to get high and my boom plugged up. The legend on this map is pretty narrow. Light orange to light green is the optimal range that I'm looking for. You can tell this last pass right here dropped way off on me, and I wasn't even driving that fast. That's how I knew immediately that my booms needed looked at, or at least the strainer did. This field right here is one where we ran that inline ripper, and man, you can tell the sprayer's having one heck of a time staying on the rows, or I guess off the rows, a better way to look at it, because I think those diagonal ripper passes are grabbing the tire, and although you can't see them, they're moving you side to side as you cross them, because the sprayer is just fighting back and forth. I thought that that would not be as much of an issue with that deep inline ripper as it is with our disc ripper. Guess I was wrong, because it's just as bad. It really makes steering challenging for these things. This Hagee's doing all it can do to stay on the auto steer line. You can tell where the planter guy ran out of seed. Shame on him. 30 acres to go. I think I have just enough in the tank to finish this. Why don't we just throw another curveball in my timeliness? My strainers are plugged again because I'm running 100 PSI at 9 to 10 mile an hour. You can see my rate actually started to fall off right here. I'm fine running high pressures other than there being a little bit of breeze. I talked about that earlier, but I can't have the rate falling like that. I need to be applying my target. I'm getting fairly good at this. Didn't even get my hands wet, but I still rinsed them off. I ought to just leave the pipe wrench down there because I'll probably be out there getting 10 acres. I'm gonna have to apologize to my dad for giving him a hard time about his planting job. I planted all this over here, and look at this pass right here. It looks like I was 12 beers deep when I did this. Definitely room for improvement on our planter. I don't know if it's on the GPS side or if it's on the tractor itself. These crooked rows are not fun to spray. I'm actually having to hand steer. I know, not using auto steer, the audacity. A millennial like me can barely handle that much work. That'll do for post-emerge corn spraying, and we somehow didn't run out of solution, which is a plus. Time to hit the road back west. Can't even see the product on the site tube. I must be a math wizard. Up-offs are outside dressing corn. I talked to Bill the other day, he said they were getting close to done. I was going to let him borrow my tanker if I was done spraying corn herbicide, but the stars did not align. It'd be a pretty convenient way to clean out all that atrazine and callisto. There's a lot going on around here, especially for me. Get home, get out of the sprayer while it's still warm, and head over to put a sweep auger in a bed. With this super warm forecast we have in the 10-day, this corn is gonna take off. I'm so excited to see it go. Oh, back to my day job. That's what I get for being the most youthful person here at the farm. Oh well, work's gotta get done. Sweeps in, we pulled 2 loads out of here this afternoon. We'll finish it up tomorrow. I think it's safe to say that the Hagee cab is much more enjoyable to be in than this grain bin, although they're both pretty important. These beans behind the bin site look pretty phenomenal. Pretty much all of our crops are about to take off this week. We've got plenty of moisture. They're calling for 85 to 90 degree temperatures, and that's exactly what corn and soybeans like. Me personally, I like going home at the end of the day and taking it easy, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. Other than dealing with that pesky atrazine, we had a pretty good run of post-emergence corn herbicide. Never as fast as I envisioned it to be, though I am still technically a beginner. We'll get better every year as we make additional passes in the sprayer and get more comfortable. Either way, I'm taking off. I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. Catch y'all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!